Hollywood's brightest stars weren't always acting. Some demanded authenticity at any cost. Victims stayed silent because speaking meant career suicide. Were your favorite classics hiding dark realities? Marlon Brando. The method acting legend didn't just break rules in films, he shattered boundaries between fiction and reality. During Last Tango in Paris, Brando and director Bernardo Bertolucci planned a scene that would shock the world without informing actress Maria Schneider of what would happen. The brutal moment wasn't just acting for her, it was genuine shock captured on film forever. I felt humiliated and frankly violated, Schneider revealed years later. I was only 19. Marlon was almost 50. I had no agency. What audiences praised as artistic brilliance was actually a young woman's trauma disguised as cinema. Crew members watched silently as Brando pushed boundaries under the protection of artistic expression. The scene became legendary while Schneider suffered for decades afterward, her objections dismissed as unprofessionalism. Critics called it raw emotional truth, while ignoring the real violation happening before their eyes. Bertolucci admitted years later they deliberately kept her in the dark, so her reaction would be authentic. The film industry celebrated this as creative genius rather than questioning the ethics. Brando faced no consequences. Instead, he was nominated for an Oscar while Schneider struggled with depression and substance abuse. Hollywood's message was clear. Boundaries meant nothing when weighed against box office potential. Authenticity became the perfect alibi for behavior that would never be acceptable outside a film set. This wasn't method acting. It was power disguised as art, with cameras as silent witnesses. Clark Gable. Hollywood's king ruled his kingdom absolutely. On the set of Gone with the Wind, Gable reportedly insisted on multiple takes of intimate scenes with Vivien Leigh, claiming they lacked conviction. What the public didn't know was that behind his charismatic smile was a man who used his star power to manipulate what happened when the cameras rolled. He doesn't like to fake anything, one crew member noted, and nobody tells Clark Gable no. During filming of Red Dust, co-star Jean Harlow found herself locked in increasingly uncomfortable retakes as Gable insisted on more authenticity. The director, knowing where studio power lay, allowed these moments to continue beyond what was scripted. Harlow later confided to friends that certain scenes went beyond acting into unwanted territory. Studio executives covered everything with publicity campaigns promoting their amazing chemistry. Meanwhile, younger actresses were warned about working with him. "Keep your guard up and never be alone in his dressing room," became whispered advice. What appeared as passionate romance on screen often hid a darker reality. Gable reportedly used technical issues as excuses for retakes of intimate scenes, claiming the lighting wasn't right or the angle was wrong. The real reason was his desire for physical contact beyond what was professionally necessary. His off-camera reputation mirrored his on-screen dominance. Women who rejected his advances found their careers mysteriously stalled. In Golden Age Hollywood, the king's desires were treated as commands, not requests. Errol Flynn. The swashbuckling heartthrob brought his notorious womanizing directly onto film sets. Flynn didn't just act passionate scenes, he lived them, often crossing professional boundaries with co-stars under the guise of authenticity. During the filming of Captain Blood, Flynn reportedly demanded that love scenes be shot without rehearsal to capture true emotion. With Flynn, the first take was always the most dangerous, one actress revealed. You never knew how far he would go before someone yelled, "Cut." His charm masked something more predatory. On the set of The Adventures of Robin Hood, Flynn insisted on doing his own stunts during romantic scenes with Olivia de Havilland, often improvising moments of physical contact not in the script. Directors rarely interfered because Flynn's name guaranteed ticket sales. When actresses complained, studio heads dismissed concerns with phrases like, "That's just Errol being Errol." His behavior became an open secret in Hollywood, with female stars warning each other before accepting roles opposite him. Some actresses requested chaperones during intimate scenes. Off-set, Flynn's mansion became infamous for wild parties, where the line between consent and coercion blurred. His autobiography brazenly detailed conquests without a hint of remorse or awareness of boundaries crossed. The studio system protected him completely, When serious allegations emerged, Warner Brothers orchestrated cover-ups, paid for silence, and continued casting young actresses opposite him. The box office trumped ethics every time. Flynn's reputation eventually caught up with him in court, but his legacy remained largely untarnished as audiences separated the dashing hero on screen from the problematic man behind it. Kirk Douglas. The chiseled-jawed star projected strength and dominance in every role, qualities that reportedly extended beyond the script during intimate scenes. On multiple productions, Douglas was known for improvising physical contact, pulling actresses closer than necessary, and turning rehearsals into opportunities for unwanted advances. When Kirk decided a scene needed more passion, nobody questioned him, recalled a former camera operator. The director would just keep rolling. During the filming of Champion, Douglas reportedly demanded a young actress appear for late-night private rehearsals of love scenes. When she refused, she found her screen time mysteriously reduced. His power at the studio meant complaints disappeared into the system without trace. His infamous temper became a tool of intimidation. Actresses who rebuffed his advances faced public humiliation on set, with Douglas often criticizing their professionalism in front of the entire crew. The message was clear: accommodate or face consequences. What critics praised as explosive chemistry on screen often represented something far different behind the scenes. Female co-stars developed tactics like wearing extra layers of clothing during intimate scenes with him, or insisting on specific camera angles to minimize actual contact. Studio publicity departments worked overtime, creating stories of on-set romance while bearing tales of Douglas's boundary-crossing behavior. His box office draw made him untouchable, leaving actresses with an impossible choice: endure unwanted intimacy or risk career suicide by speaking out. Years later, a production assistant revealed the most frightening words on set were, "Kirk thinks this scene could be more authentic." Richard Burton. The brooding Welsh actor approached intimate scenes with the same intensity he brought to Shakespeare. On the set of Cleopatra, Burton's passion for Elizabeth Taylor wasn't just tabloid fodder. It became a weapon that director Joseph Mankiewicz couldn't control. Burton insisted on actual intimacy during filming, blurring the line between performance and reality. "When Dick decides a kiss should be real, it's going to be real," one crew member noted. The script becomes merely a suggestion. His drinking made situations increasingly unpredictable. During filming of The VIPs, Burton reportedly arrived intoxicated for an intimate scene, turning scripted tenderness into something far more aggressive. The actress later described feeling trapped between the camera and his advances. Burton justified his approach as artistic integrity. "If the audience doesn't believe it, what's the point?" he would argue when directors attempted to intervene. His prestigious theatrical background gave weight to these demands, silencing objections. His volatile relationship with Taylor carried on to multiple sets, with arguments erupting into physical confrontations that directors incorporated into films rather than stopping. What audiences saw as passionate drama was often genuine conflict captured by opportunistic filmmakers. Female co-stars not named Elizabeth Taylor found themselves particularly vulnerable. Burton reportedly used rehearsals to establish unwanted physical dynamics that would continue when cameras rolled. His reputation for brilliance overshadowed complaints about his methods. Studio executives dismissed concerns, pointing to box office numbers as justification for allowing Burton's behavior to continue unchecked. Art became the perfect cover for actions that would never be tolerated in any other workplace. Jean Harlow. Hollywood's original blonde bombshell faced the darker side of fame as studios exploited her image and body. What audiences didn't see was how male co-stars took advantage of intimate scenes, often going beyond the script while directors kept cameras rolling. At just 21, Harlow found herself trapped in a system where her boundaries meant nothing. "They told me to just smile and get through it," she confided to a makeup artist. "That's what stars do." During Red Dust, Clark Gable reportedly improvised physical contact beyond what was planned, while the director praised his initiative. Studio heads labeled Harlow difficult when she requested limits on what could happen during filming. Her body became public property, her consent an afterthought. MGM executives scheduled her intimate scenes back-to-back to keep male audiences interested, ignoring her exhaustion. When Harlow requested breaks between physically demanding scenes, producers reminded her how easily she could be replaced. What critics called natural sensuality was actually a young woman's discomfort captured for profit. Between takes, male crew members made explicit comments about her body while directors did nothing. The blonde image selling tickets was suffocating the real woman behind it. Harlow's early death at 26 was attributed to illness, but friends knew the truth was more complex. Years of physical and emotional exploitation had broken her spirit long before her body failed. The system that created her image ultimately consumed her completely. The tragedy wasn't just her premature death, but how Hollywood continued the same exploitative patterns with new young actresses, learning nothing from the destruction of its brightest star. Frank Sinatra. Old Blue Eyes brought his volatile temperament directly to film sets. Known for his explosive personality off camera, Sinatra demanded total control during intimate scenes, often improvising physical contact that left actresses visibly uncomfortable. On From Here to Eternity, he reportedly insisted on realistic passion with Deborah Kerr, beyond what director Fred Zinnemann had planned. Frank doesn't do fake, a crew member recalled. When he holds someone, you feel it through the screen because it's happening for real. His notorious connections made complaints impossible. Actresses knew crossing Sinatra meant potentially ending their careers. During filming of The Tender Trap, Sinatra allegedly demanded multiple retakes of romantic scenes, each time pushing boundaries further, while the director remained silent. His unpredictable mood swings terrorized sets. Actresses reported feeling physically intimidated during intimate scenes, with Sinatra switching between charm and aggression without warning. What appeared as chemistry was often fear disguised as passion. When one actress voiced concerns about his improvised touching, Sinatra reportedly had her role reduced. His power extended beyond the studio lot through connections that made formal complaints career suicide. Women learned to endure his advances rather than risk everything by speaking out. Studio publicity departments created narratives about Sinatra's irresistible charm, while bearing stories about his controlling behavior. His box office appeal made him untouchable, allowing pattern after pattern of boundary crossing to continue unchecked. Off-set, his relationships mirrored the dominance displayed on camera. Ava Gardner once described living with him as walking on glass, never knowing what would trigger the explosion. Montgomery Clift. The troubled method actor approached intimate scenes with disturbing intensity. Clift immersed himself so completely in characters that co-stars reported feeling genuinely frightened during romantic moments on camera. During A Place in the Sun, Elizabeth Taylor found herself caught in Clift's increasingly erratic behavior as he demanded real emotional vulnerability. Monty doesn't separate himself from the role, a director explained. When his character desires someone, Monty truly desires them. His personal demons manifested physically on set. After his disfiguring car accident, Clift's dependency on alcohol and pain medication made intimate scenes unpredictable and often uncomfortable for co-stars. During Suddenly Last Summer, Katharine Hepburn reportedly requested a closed set due to Clift's increasingly inappropriate behavior between takes. What critics praised as raw vulnerability often came at the expense of his female co-stars' comfort. Clift would reportedly refuse to break character between scenes, continuing unwanted advances even when cameras stopped rolling. Directors enabled this behavior, calling it artistic dedication. His fragile mental state became a weapon that silenced complaints. Actresses who expressed discomfort were told they were damaging a troubled genius. The industry protected Clift while exposing countless women to his boundary-crossing behavior. Studio executives justified everything as necessary for artistic greatness. When one actress threatened to quit mid-production due to Clift's unwanted advances, the studio reminded her of the financial penalties for breaking contract. What appeared as tortured romance on screen was often real discomfort captured by opportunistic filmmakers who placed art above basic human dignity. Spencer Tracy. The respected actor's controlled on-screen persona masked a troubling approach to intimate scenes. Tracy reportedly used his reputation for professionalism to push boundaries with co-stars, especially younger actresses. During Pat and Mike, Tracy allegedly improvised physical contact with Katharine Hepburn that wasn't in the script, knowing she wouldn't object due to their relationship. Spencer wants authenticity, one director noted, and nobody questions Spencer Tracy. His drinking exacerbated concerning behaviors. On the set of Desk Set, Tracy reportedly arrived intoxicated for an intimate scene, turning scripted affection into uncomfortable aggression that the director allowed to continue. The actress later described feeling trapped by his reputation and unable to speak up. What Hollywood celebrated as the perfect gentleman on screen had a darker reality behind the cameras. Tracy reportedly used rehearsals to establish physical dynamics that would continue when filming began, leaving co-stars uncomfortable but unwilling to risk their careers by complaining. His relationship with Hepburn created additional complications. Actresses who rejected his advances were labeled difficult, while those who accommodated them found themselves compared unfavorably to Hepburn. Either way, their careers suffered. Studio executives dismissed concerns about his behavior, pointing to his box office draw and critical acclaim. Even directors who witnessed uncomfortable interactions remained silent, unwilling to challenge a star with Tracy's industry power. The industry's protection of Tracy continued for decades, with stories of his boundary-crossing behavior buried beneath glowing tributes to his acting genius. Meanwhile, actresses warned each other in whispers about working with the legendary star. Humphrey Bogart. Hollywood's tough guy brought his commanding presence directly into intimate scenes, often taking control beyond what directors intended. During To Have and Have Not, Bogart reportedly used Lauren Bacall's inexperience to push physical boundaries under the guise of mentorship. The 19-year-old newcomer found herself caught between Bogart's advances and career opportunity. "Bogey doesn't believe in holding back," a crew member observed. "What you see on screen isn't pretend. It's happening." His power at Warner Brothers made him untouchable. During The Big Sleep, Bogart allegedly improvised intimate moments with multiple actresses, going beyond the script while directors kept cameras rolling. Complaints disappeared into the studio system without trace. Off-screen, his growing infatuation with Bacall created uncomfortable dynamics on set. She later admitted feeling trapped between genuine attraction and professional pressure, uncertain where the character ended and real expectations began. What critics praised as sizzling chemistry often masked questionable power dynamics. Younger actresses reported feeling intimidated during intimate scenes, with Bogart using his star status to justify increasingly physical interactions not in the script. Studio publicity departments manufactured consent through carefully crafted narratives about romantic connections between Bogart and his leading ladies. Meanwhile, actresses developed defensive strategies, like requesting specific camera angles to minimize actual contact during intimate scenes. His marriage to Bacall silenced many stories, with Hollywood framing their relationship as the perfect romance rather than examining its troubling beginnings. The industry continued casting young actresses opposite him without warning them about his reputation for boundary-crossing behavior. Marilyn Monroe. America's most famous blonde wasn't just objectified on screen. She was exploited behind the cameras as, well, what audiences didn't see was how male co-stars took advantage during intimate scenes, often going beyond the script while directors encouraged authenticity. Monroe's attempts to establish boundaries were dismissed as difficult behavior. "They wanted the sex symbol, not the person," her acting coach later revealed. Her comfort meant nothing compared to the male gaze. During Some Like It Hot, Monroe reportedly faced unwanted advances from male cast members during romantic scenes. When she objected, director Billy Wilder allegedly told her to use it for her character. Her growing substance abuse problems were partly attempts to numb herself before intimate scenes she dreaded. Studio executives scheduled her most revealing scenes when certain male producers would be on set, turning her work into spectacle. Between takes, crew members made explicit comments while directors did nothing. What appeared as natural sensuality was often profound discomfort captured for profit. What critics praised as vulnerable eroticism was frequently genuine distress. As her fame grew, so did the exploitation. By The Misfits, Monroe was barely functioning, yet intimate scenes continued as scheduled, despite her deteriorating condition. The tragedy extended beyond her premature death. Hollywood had created a system that reduced her to body parts rather than recognizing her humanity. When she tried establishing control over how she was filmed, studios labeled her impossible rather than addressing her legitimate concerns. Her legacy reveals the darker truth. The woman who symbolized desire was herself denied any agency over how her image and body were used. Tony Curtis. The heartthrob with matinee idol looks had a reputation for pushing boundaries during intimate scenes. Curtis reportedly used his charm to manipulate filming environments, often requesting retakes of romantic moments, claiming they lacked authenticity. What audiences didn't see was how these requests created opportunities for unwanted contact. Tony believes in feeling real emotion, a director explained. Sometimes that means going beyond the page. During Some Like It Hot, Curtis allegedly used scenes with Marilyn Monroe to initiate physical contact, not in the script. When she expressed discomfort, the crew dismissed her concerns as unprofessional behavior while enabling his. His approach became more problematic with less established actresses. On smaller productions, Curtis reportedly insisted on closed sets for intimate scenes, removing witnesses who might object to his improvised moments of physical contact beyond what was planned. What critics praised as natural chemistry often represented something troubling behind the scenes. Female co-stars developed strategies to minimize actual contact, like wearing additional clothing layers or requesting specific camera angles that created the illusion of intimacy without allowing actual boundary crossing. Studio publicity departments created narratives about on-set romances to explain visible tension between Curtis and his co-stars. The reality was often women trying to maintain professional boundaries against persistent pressure. As his star power grew, so did his demands. Curtis reportedly refused to work with actresses who had previously objected to his approaches during intimate scenes, effectively blacklisting women for protecting their boundaries. Studio executives enabled this behavior by recasting rather than addressing the underlying issues. James Dean. The brooding rebel brought dangerous intensity to intimate scenes through his commitment to method acting. Dean reportedly stayed in character between takes, continuing to pursue actresses even when cameras stopped rolling. During East of Eden, his co-star Julie Harris found herself dealing with Dean's erratic behavior, both on and off camera. Jimmy doesn't separate fiction from reality, his director noted. That's what makes his performance so authentic and so difficult to control. His unpredictable approach created genuine fear that translated to screen chemistry. During Rebel Without a Cause, Dean allegedly improvised physical contact with Natalie Wood beyond what was scripted, catching her off guard while cameras captured her genuine reaction rather than acting. What critics praised as electric connection was often real discomfort. Dean reportedly used rehearsals to establish physical dynamics that would continue during filming, leaving actresses uncertain what to expect when actual shooting began. His rapid rise to fame made complaints impossible. When one actress expressed concerns about his boundary-crossing behavior, she was quickly reminded how many young women would gladly take her place opposite Hollywood's newest star. Studio executives weaponized Dean's troubled background to justify his behavior, framing boundary violations as artistic expression from a tortured soul. Directors enabled this approach by keeping cameras rolling during unscripted moments of physical contact rather than protecting actresses. His premature death cemented the mythology while bearing the troubling reality. Hollywood transformed Dean into an icon of youthful rebellion rather than examining the power dynamics he exploited through his artistic process. Ava Gardner. The stunning actress faced exploitation from both sides of the camera. Male co-stars frequently pushed boundaries during intimate scenes, while directors demanded authentic passion regardless of her comfort. What the public never saw was how Gardner's attempts to establish professional limits were dismissed as difficult behavior. They wanted the fantasy, not the woman, her friend later revealed. Ava's job was to be desired, not respected. During The Barefoot Contessa, Gardner reportedly faced unwanted advances from a much older co-star during romantic scenes. When she complained to the director, he allegedly told her to use the discomfort for her character. Her growing reputation for being difficult stemmed directly from these attempts to protect herself. Studio executives scheduled her most revealing scenes when important male producers would be visiting, turning her work into spectacle. Between takes, crew members made explicit comments while directors remained silent. What appeared as natural allure was often profound discomfort captured for profit. What critics praised as smoldering sexuality was frequently genuine distress. As her fame grew, so did her determination to establish boundaries. By Night of the Iguana, Gardner had developed strategies to maintain control, including specific contract clauses about how intimate scenes would be filmed. The industry punished this assertion of boundaries by gradually reducing her starring roles. Hollywood had created a system that valued compliance over talent, especially for women whose primary value was deemed to be their appearance rather than their acting ability. Gardner's later years revealed the bitter truth. I was never the person they sold to the public. That woman was their creation, not mine. Laurence Olivier. The respected British thespian brought theatrical intensity to intimate scenes that often left co-stars genuinely distressed. During Wuthering Heights, Merle Oberon reportedly faced increasingly aggressive behavior from Olivier during romantic scenes as he became Heathcliff completely. What critics praised as method brilliance was experienced very differently by his female scene partners. Larry doesn't pretend passion, a director explained. He generates it, whether his co-star is prepared or not. His classical training became a shield against criticism. When actresses expressed discomfort with his physical approach to intimate scenes, Olivier would dismiss concerns with lectures about artistic commitment and theatrical tradition. During Rebecca, Joan Fontaine found herself genuinely frightened by Olivier's unpredictable intensity during romantic moments. The director, Alfred Hitchcock, reportedly encouraged this dynamic, believing her real fear would translate effectively to the character's emotions. What appeared as masterful acting often concealed troubling power dynamics. Olivier reportedly used rehearsals to establish physical patterns that would intensify when cameras rolled, leaving actresses uncertain what to expect during actual filming. His status in the industry made complaints impossible. When one actress threatened to report his boundary-crossing behavior, she was quickly reminded how damaging it would be to challenge Britain's greatest living actor. Her career considerations forced silence. Studio publicity departments created narratives about artistic collaboration while bearing stories of dominance and discomfort. Olivier's reputation remained untarnished while actresses warned each other in whispers about what to expect when cast opposite the legendary star. The tragedy wasn't just individual incidents, but how thoroughly the system protected power at the expense of basic dignity. The glamour you see on screen hides darker truths behind the camera. These legends built careers on moments that crossed lines between acting and reality. But here's the question Hollywood still won't answer. How many classics were built on real trauma disguised as art? Was your favorite love scene actually consensual? Comment below with the stars you'll never view the same way again. The industry has changed its rules, but has it really changed its power dynamics?